Hello, and welcome to Simple Life Philosophy. I'm your host, Ed Raby. This is the channel where we're following on my journey and trying to discover a simple philosophy of life that is both simple to understand and easy to execute as well. And you're following along on my journey as I continue towards a more simpler life through following this philosophy. Um, I also want to encourage everybody to like, share, comment, and do the things that you do. Subscribe to the channel and get your notification bell hit so that you don't miss any new content. Every little bit helps. Recently we passed 50 subscribers and I'm very happy about that. Next goal is 100, so let's keep working towards that goal. Today, this video may seem a little bit more rabid atheist-ish, but I'm engaging religion because I do follow pagan philosophy, and sometimes people say, well, isn't that kind of religious philosophy? Yes and no. The pagans had a very naturalistic view of the world, which led to the formation of their spirituality. You could argue that they looked at what was and tried to extrapolate why. And that's where the religious part is, the why. But for the most part, I've kept religious philosophies out of my philosophical system and completely gotten rid of them. And one of the big challenges when I first became an atheist was I, I had to look at a new philosophy and a new way of doing things. And I began to embrace certain things just to provide a basic framework for doing what I did. But religion does indeed persist, and I think it will persist and continue to persist. I know a lot of my atheist brethren and sisterin would love to see religion fall off the planet, but I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. And I think there's about three major reasons why religion continues to persist and will continue to persist well into the future. And these reasons, I think, kind of form the backbone of any religion. There's a philosophical underpinning of any religion that allows it to continue to thrive and exist, despite the fact that a lot of what it's based on is mythology and basically human imagination. But human imagination inspires the soul, and religion is often full of that kind of imagination, and so it continues to persist. But these three reasons, I think, are more rational reasons that I've kind of thought out about why religion continues to exist. Now, the first reason that I have is not mine, but it's one that comes from Christopher Hitchens, and I think is very, very true. He basically said religion will continue to persist as long as we fear death. And I think he's largely correct, in fact, very correct. As long as we have this survival instinct within us that's been built up by millions of years of evolution, this survival instinct translates into, well, there must be a way to survive even past death. And so people come up with stories to comfort themselves, and we fear death and we regret death because we often have loved ones that die. We regret that we didn't say certain things to them. So we create this mythology in our head that we'll see them again so that we can say the things that we thought we should say. Now, I get that a lot of religious people out there will listen to my channel and say, well, some things are based on history. Well, I used to think so too. The history is sketchy in almost every religion that I've ever studied, including my own faith that I had for 40 years, Christianity. But that's a discussion for another day. I'm talking about all religions in general offer some way of alleviating the fear of death or allowing one to transcend death and become something else, okay? Whether it's reincarnation or becoming one with the universe, or, as many of the monotheistic religions go, a paradise, a Sheol, a place, Abraham's bosom, a paradise, all of those things where people are taken to a place after they die where they can be reunited with loved ones, can see people that have gone on before, see their religious heroes and pat them on the back, say thank you very much, all that stuff, and just become a part of whatever it is. And so it transcends the idea of transcending death because we fear it and are afraid of it is one of the reasons that religion continues to persist. For me personally, I don't find this a very compelling reason. Because if I would rather face the reality of what death is, at least as far as we can understand it on this side. People I say, well, you don't know. Well, neither do you. Whenever people say to me that there's life after death, I say, how do you know? Have you died and been there and come back? Well, no, I've never died. I said, well, then you have no idea and you're just making it up. And you don't have any reason to believe anything else. So philosophically, I've had to come to engage the topic of death. And for me, I suddenly realized it's kind of fruitless to fear death. Because once death hits me, I won't have any feelings about it whatsoever. I will be gone. And that is a hard pill to swallow, but a very relieving pill to swallow once you've done so. Because then you begin to realize that you need to take the life that you have a heck of a lot more seriously, because this is the one you get. I didn't really start striving to live my best life until after I became an atheist. Because before, I could always say, well, I'll have more time in heaven, or I'll have more time doing this, or I can kick this down the road and do it later. I can call this person later, and even if they do die, I'll see them later in heaven. I regret not saying this to my father, and so it's nice to know that I'll see him again and I'll be able to say it to his face. Well, all of that just goes out the window, and you start to go, no, I need to say this stuff to my people now. I need to go do this now and live this now. I need to make this improvement in myself now, because I don't know that I have tomorrow. And it's that really drives me, and no God required, no religion required. The second reason why religion persists is that it provides a philosophical framework for living life, a worldview of looking at life that doesn't require a lot of work. It's already prepackaged for you. You just go to the preacher, you listen to what they have to say, you accept what they have to say, and you live your life according to that framework. I think the reason religion will continue to survive is as long as these prepackaged frameworks exist and people are lazy about coming up with a philosophical system that works and actually goes forward, they will continue to embrace religion for some sort of meaning to life. My religion gives me a meaning and a purpose is one of those things, because instead of searching out what their meaning and purpose could be for themselves, they just simply accept the framework because it's a whole heck of a lot easier to do that than actually have to think through every issue and actually embrace what the rational and real issues should be. For me, philosophically, this was one of the easiest ones to get rid of, because once I realized that I needed to come up with my own philosophical framework, to come up with my own objectives, that I could give myself purpose and meaning without some sort of outside force. It became, in one sense, a lot more work, but it was a huge sigh of relief in that I wasn't trying to appease anybody anymore except myself. And that's a heck of a lot easier in that respect. But it's also a lot more work, because now I had to think through all the issues. I had to go forward and come up with a philosophical framework myself. And that's why Simple Life philosophy is, because I realized what most of us humans do with religion and many other philosophies is we overcomplicate things. And because we overcomplicate it, it becomes too difficult to live. Religion in particular, its philosophical systems are often either A, contradictory, or B, so difficult to live that you end up in sin no matter what you do. And that's a dangerous place to be. The final reason that religion continues to exist is because it has a great habit of stealing from society that which works practically. There's just something about having prepackaged ways to live your life that is easy for the lazy person, but they also work. For instance, the golden rule is nearly in every religion. Well, why is that there? Is it because God gave it to all these religions, or is it simply that reciprocity, the idea of I'm not going to do to you what I don't want done to me, I'm going to do for you what I would want to do for me if I was in your position, seems to be just a really good ethic to live by if you're a social species and trying to make good. You don't need a religion to kind of do anything about that. That's the one thing about how to live that I have discovered, is that a lot of things that we do that we call morality have a lot to do with how we live in a society effectively with each other and yet go forward as individuals. It has a lot to do with that. But there are other practical issues where religion will pick up the ball of something that works. For instance, like it or not, evolutionarily speaking, the nuclear family works. One man, one woman, having kids, taking care of kids, providing for each other, passing things on to the next generation allows for survival, it allows for prosperity, and it works. Okay, a lot of people don't like to hear that, but the fact of the matter is that religion has an advantage in this area. Traditional morality has an advantage in this area because roles for family members are clearly defined. And people go forward, procreate, and then thus, they procreate some more. And ultimately, the thing about the nuclear family is you get to pass on your values to your children. And thus, traditional morals always seem to win out worldwide. A lot of Westerners think that our morality is the morality around the rest of the world, but I have news for you. If you travel south of the border into Mexico, or if you go to Africa, or you go to Asia, or you go to a lot of the rest of the world, they follow a very traditional morality with the man as the head of the house. Women are there to do a certain role. Men are there to do a certain role. The children have certain obligations, and so on and so forth. There's strong ideas of femininity and masculinity, and like it or not, that works. And religion comes along and steals all that and says, well, that was God's idea, and aren't you glad we're here to preserve the words of God and tell them to you? I don't think that's so. I think that system, that nuclear family system, that tradition has gone through thousands of religions in the millions and millions of years it's been around. The point I'm trying to make is simply religion steals the best ideas that work on a practical level and then passes them off as divine revelation many times. And that's why it continues to persist, because it works sometimes. The fact is, many addicts replace their addiction with faith. Well, at least they're not on the drugs and the alcohol anymore, destroying their lives. And many times, because of the prepackaged morality, because of this overcoming of the fear of death and all this stuff, people do end up with better lives by becoming religious. We have to admit this if we're going to be honest. And because of that, we have to acknowledge that religion's probably going to persist for this reason. It simply fits with what works, evolutionarily speaking. Religion and many other things like the nuclear family, like coming up with ritualistic systems for burial, things like that have been created and evolved, and they work. And religion has a tendency to be the guardians of that. And because of that, it continues to persist. But it doesn't mean that it's religion's ideas. Sometimes it's just stuff that works. And religion just says, well, yeah, we'll take credit for that. Even though it's probably somebody else's idea that just said, this works a lot better than anything else we've tried. Let's stick with this. And it persists. Well, those are my 3 reasons why I think religion survives and will continue to survive well into the future. The fact of the matter is we have to deal with its practical implications. We have to deal with the fact that it works, but that is no reason why to accept it as truth. The truth is there probably isn't a God, and in fact I would say highly likely, and that anything that we have seen in our life that works, any philosophical framework, any practical thing that we do, is probably more the product of trial and error and evolution than anything else. And because of that, we end up where we are. And religion just simply takes the credit. Well, that's been my thoughts for today here on Simple Life Philosophy. I want to thank everybody for liking, sharing, and subscribing and doing the things that you do, and I ask you to continue to do that. Truly you are appreciated. And I always want to take the time to tell you that I do indeed appreciate you. Well, that's been Simple Life Philosophy for today. This is your host, Ed Raby, and I'm going to sign off and wish you a great day.